introduced to the guitar at an early age, but really never sought it out until my early teens. What brought me to the guitar was just the purity of the sound. I just absolutely loved it. And then became very fascinated with the movement of the right-hand fingerings. I found that very intriguing. And so I knew then at that point the direction I had to go was really to pursue classical guitar. And so I acquired a recording of Andriaccio, which even back then, if you didn't know anything about classical guitar, you knew he was the supreme performer on that instrument. And then Julian Bream. And I purchased a recording of Julian Bream, which was the Villalobos recording. It had the concerto and the etudes and some preludes. And that particular CD is where I really fell in love with classical guitar. I fell in love with the sound. I fell in love with the repertoire. And that was sort of my reference point and how I wanted to develop and where I wanted to take it as a classical guitarist. Well, the making of music and always being musical was deeply, deeply impressed upon me from my very first lesson. The teacher that I had was of old European tradition. His name was Oswald Rantucci. And although you had to learn your technique in that every time, even though you played technique, he would keep saying, make music, make music. And so it got on a weekly basis that I would go in and I would try very hard and try to be musical. And words would always come out of his mouth, make more music, until many weeks or maybe even months down the road, I finally kind of threw up my hands and said, I don't understand. I'm trying to be musical and I'm trying to give you all I have. And I think essentially what you're asking me is to stand out there, naked and have blood pour out of my veins, and that's what you want from me. And I turned to him and he looked at me and he said, now you got it.
From the first day we met, for Joanne, it's always been about sound, just getting the biggest, fattest, richest sound possible. In fact, her whole approach to music and the guitar is through her right hand. Our first teacher, Oswald Rantucci, used to tell me week after week, lesson after lesson, to motivate me, of course. He would say, well, Michael, you will never have a right hand like Joanne Castellani. Well, he was right. Few people do. She uses her right hand like a string player uses a bow, so many different strokes and techniques to facilitate orchestration, articulation, voicing, balance.
I guess how I got myself through school was teaching. And I had a great love for teaching. I find it very fascinating or exciting to have someone there and to introduce them to something new and to draw out of them something that maybe they didn't know they had, and that learning of a particular instrument and a creativity that maybe they didn't even know they had inside. I was introduced to younger children in a group, and it was the Suzuki method. And to witness about 15, 20 kids in the room where they were being asked on all musical levels to play. Let's do a crescendo, forte, piano, rest stroke. And the response, it was immediate with them. And I was just totally blown away. And from that point, saw that there was an interest there, and actually almost a responsibility on my part was for me to go into our community here and to introduce that method to children that probably would have never done that. Maybe they would have gone to violin or piano or something. And to bring the guitar to a younger group of interested people and to develop that. Well, the fascinating part for me is that when you get them so young, and the particular place that I was working with when I started the Suzuki method actually had where on a twice a month basis they would get up in front of about almost 300 people and play or to do something or even just to take a bow. And this became just so comfortable for them to do this. And the other part of that method was when they get to the end of each book, they get up and they play a full concert in a recital hall. And so I take great delight in mentioning a particular pupil of mine who loved playing because he felt like the star. And so we went and we scheduled his graduation from book one. And I think it was all in total of almost like about 30 minutes from beginning to end, where he had to present himself and play pieces along with me accompanying. And it was just the greatest thing that I think, my first experience and the greatest thing that I could have developed from that whole experience. This young man began, it was a funny story actually about him. He began at the age of 4 and just didn't like it. And so it was a battle and he would cry and so on and so forth. And then he came back about 6 months later and presented this amazing Book 1 graduation recital.
One of the amazing things about her work with very, very young students is context, the environment she creates and the results she gets. Our dear friend Eduardo Fernandez once said in a masterclass, "You can never produce a sound better than the sound you want." And how true that is. Her little ones get a fabulous sound because from day one, the first note they hear on a guitar, her sound is the only sound they know.
So Saltarello really began with my university level students and teenagers. And we put on a number of concerts that went very, very well. And it's also to serve as sort of a stepping ground where the younger kids go from that and eventually start making their way into saltarello, picking up different instruments. And the most important thing is also working with world music. That I found to be a very important element, not just to do Baroque period or something like that, but really African, Turkish, Spanish. We just explore everything.